I love, and sitting next to me is none other than the General Attorney Greg Jackson.
Once again, it's on, brother. Love. Hey, you know how we get this thing started, man. How's this weekend for you, this past weekend?
Man, this weekend was great, Greg, man, and tomorrow's going to be even better.
What was tomorrow?
Tomorrow is my oldest baby birthday. What do you do? What do you do?
Man, where's the time going?
Time is flying, man. Time is flying.
Well, so what you got planned? You can't say because you might be listening.
Well, I just know my pocket's gonna be a little lighter.
That's always the case.
That's always the case.
That's always the case.
And
Birthdays or not, that's always the case.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, man. I mean, I just see these two young ladies, man, just developing, and I've had the opportunity, man, to see Kennedy grow. And how's Kennedy doing, man?
She's doing good. And when you talk about pockets getting lighter, I don't know if you remember, but some years ago she started this thing called Santa the Seams.
I do remember that.
So she has carried that from Central Florida to Tallahassee.
Okay.
Now. And so she was here for Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden I found out that I am a sponsor.
You're a sponsor, huh?
Santa the Seams, and not only am I.
Man, that's great, Greg.
Not only am I the what they call like the top sponsor, what they call them?
Your signature sponsor.
I'm the signature sponsor. I'm the only sponsor.
So, hey, that's great. So she took that from Central Florida and just, hey man, that is great.
Yeah.
Man.
So yeah, she's identified some facilities in Tallahassee, and she's been pulling like other folks together and making it happen. So,
And you and your wife, y'all planted that seed, man, and watching it grow.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. But aside from that, though, brother love, everything else is good, man. No complaints, no nothing, man. Just some interesting things that we're gonna get into and talk about tonight, man.
Interesting thing, but Greg, one of the things, man, that has everybody still scurrying around, man, is Greg. I'm gonna jump into it, man. This I can't call it anything else. This assassination of a healthcare executive.
Listen, man, this is a crazy story, brother love. But before we get into the story, what we got to do is, man, we got to let folks know they're tuned in to two of the most influential voices in Central Florida on Monday Night Podcast, Brother Love and Greg Jackson, the dynamic duo guaranteed to raise your IQs 10 to 15 points. And on some nights, Brother Love, it goes up to 30. If you want to be a part of the night show, all you got to do is hit 321-483-7002 to talk to Brother Love and Greg Jackson, the dynamic duo, two of the most influential voices in Central Florida. Brother Love, let's
Get it on.
All right. So, since we got down, last week after the show was over, apparently there was a CEO, or the CEO, not a CEO, but the CEO of United Healthcare, was going to speak at a breakfast or something in New York City. And as he entered the hotel, or prepared to enter into the hotel for the speaking engagement, someone walked up behind him and shot and killed him. In front of everybody on the New York City street.
Also, there was other people around.
Yeah. This was on the sidewalk in front of a major hotel in one of the largest cities in the United States.
Okay, because the media's been showing some of the video clips, and you see the guy who has a hoodie on and everything come up from behind, but I didn't see any. Well, from the angle that was showing.
Right, yeah, from the angle that you saw, but that was a New York City street that he was on.
Greg, some of the other information that's been revealed, I guess, through news reports, is that this, I guess, assassin, if you would, was there 10 days or more earlier wait.
So, listen, this is like a play out of a movie. And this thing apparently was well thought out, well planned. I don't know which one to call it. But apparently he got on a bus between somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, and New York City. The police don't even know where he got on the bus, but apparently he got on the bus. He got into New York City the day before Thanksgiving. Some kind of way, he knew the movements of the CEO of a major healthcare company, and decided that he was going to push the ultimate button on the CEO for United Healthcare. Now, the bigger question is, Brother Love, is why did he do it, and what's the motive?
Yeah,
and no one at this juncture can figure out what the motive of what the reason is. But the only clues that were kind of left is that on the casings of the bullet, which the gunman left, on the casings of the bullets were the words, defend, deny, depose, defend. And so that is the title of a book that was written in 2010, I want to say, about the insurance industry and what most folks believe is the policy of insurance companies, which is to deny, depose, and defend when they deny certain claims.
So Greg, let me ask you this: you have experience as a defense attorney for insurance?
In the past, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the past, I have been, an attorney who represented the interests of insurance companies, and I can tell you firsthand, Brother Love, that insurance companies are very interested. And one of the things that I always tell my clients now, because I'm a plaintiff's attorney now, I'm on the other side. I represent individuals who've been injured, and I'm now going up against insurance defense attorneys, the same person that I was years ago. And one of the things I tell them is that the insurance company is a business, and not to take the things that take place personally, because they have what they call actuary science. And what they do is they just punch numbers and they try to figure out what the potential is of certain outcomes on certain cases based on the types of injury, where the injury occurred, and like a lot of other things. Those actuary scientists have actually been replaced by a database called Colossus for some insurance companies. I might be giving up stuff that I shouldn't be supposed to be giving up, but I know it. But it's a database called Colossus, where Colossus is where the insurance professionals now just plug in that information, and Colossus kicks out a number. So the way that you know that this is a machine that's kicking out this number is like sometimes if you are dealing with the case and you're talking about how to resolve a case, you'll get a number from the adjuster that says, okay, well, we'll settle the case for, $5,283.19.
And you'll be wondering, where did that number come from?
What 19 cents? Where's that coming from? It's because it's a computer that's spitting it out based on cases across the country where this computer is saying, hey, this is what this case is valued at. And so what they're doing is that some insurance companies, not all of them use this database, is they're taking the human component out of how claims are assessed and adjusted.
So let me ask you this, Greg. From a layman's perspective, me and a lot of folk that's sitting out there and they're listening to this, when you mention deny, depose, and defend.
Yeah.
I'm a layperson. When you file that claim, and it's almost like a rehearsal. We're going to deny it. Then we're going to depose you, which is an inconvenience for the person.
Ask questions. So
Yeah.
what they call that is examinations under oath or unsworn statements or recorded statements is what they call it. So deny the claim, depose us, talk to the individuals about the nature of the claim, and then defend why they're not going to pay the claim.
So what would you
or
say?
why they're going to pay a low, what we call a low ball offer on the claim.
Okay, but that's if you get to that point. Think about folk who just get frustrated and just walk away or get tired of I guess what you might call the bureaucracy of it and don't go forward. Those are cases that, from a risk management standpoint, you're never paying a cent on it aside from paying the legal fee.
I mean, listen, it is a frustrating process, especially when, think about this also, for anyone who has tried to file for disability. The government pretty much has the same type of process, because most people who file for disability, if they've been injured or something has happened, they already know that when they submit their claim, it's going to be denied. It's almost without saying. When you submit a claim for disability with the U.S. government, your claim is going to come back denied, automatic, no question that. But then you got to refile an appeal, and then finally it'll come.
You didn't ask for this, but this is a good plug for the one of the largest law firms that you work for, Dan Newland. Greg, how long have you been with Newland? I got to put this plug in because what we're talking about is relevant.
No. So I've now been with the firm. It'll be 6 years in January. I'm probably one of the most active trial lawyers at the firm. I try cases. Matter of fact, I'm gonna be back in trial next Monday. I'll try any case. I'll fight for anybody in the courtroom.
So, Greg, have you had any cases such as this where folk are being denied their claim to, I guess, a settlement, and so you've gone through the process?
Yeah, so mainly how it happens on this side for personal injury cases. Whenever we're working up cases and we submit a claim, they'll come back and they'll say, well, we're going to deny it because we don't think the person was injured as a part of this accident. It's like, wait a minute, it was a rear end collision, and you're saying that he was rear-ended, but because he had a backache, 20 years ago, that you're going to deny it for that reason. So there's a process where you can file something that's called a civil remedies notice, where you can basically say the insurance company is not negotiating in good faith. And you can bring that up against them. And if you get that lines them up for bad faith. But for the most part, what you do is if they deny the claim, you just file a lawsuit.
I remember a case you had not too long ago, man. Was it 6 months or so ago.
It's about a year ago now. Yeah.
Well, so you know which case I'm talking
I know
about.
exactly what you're talking about.
The one that I don't know if it was your client or if it was the entity trying to settle, and they wanted to settle for maybe 50 grand or something.
Less than the client's medical bill.
Didn't that case get up like $500,000 or something?
Yeah, they can't. But not, it wasn't just the amount. It was where the case.
Okay,
that
yeah.
amount came about. I mean, listen, it was a good result, but it was over in Lake County, Florida. And as a defense attorney, I'll tell you, I'll look at case as a defense attorney, and I'll be like, oh, Lake County is a conservative district. I'll try a case over there as a defense attorney because they're not going to pay any money. That case taught those defense attorneys in that area a lesson.
Well, I remember you coming in for the show, I think, after you won that verdict, because our audience saw Attorney Greg Jackson was absent, and they were wondering why. We said you were on special assignment. They know you was going in.
Yeah.
But I remember you coming through the door, and me and Doc Polite laughing because I said, "Man, I didn't know Greg knew how to do backflip." you backflipped all the way into the studio. But so, Greg, this is something that's not unusual.
Nah, this is something that's not unusual. And I mean, the best way also, if there are folks out there and you have never seen the movie Rainmaker, it is a movie adaptation of a John Grisham novel with that's not Lou Pearlman. What's the guy's name? Danny DeVito. Okay. Danny DeVito. Not Ben Affleck. What's his buddy's name? The one that's Born Identity.
Oh, I know
Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Not Matthew McConaughey.
I know who you're talking about. Matt. What is? I don't know Matt's last name, but you.
Whatever. He was on Good Will Hunting and all that. So I just can't think of his name right now. But in any event, if you ever want to watch how insurance companies, how they delay claims and how they can cause harm to people, that's a movie to look at. But I'm sure that there are several individuals out in the community who have been affected by this. And here's the big thing also, Brother Love. There were a lot of folks that, with this assassination of this insurance executive, Brother Love, unfortunately, they forgot that this was still a human life.
Yeah.
And, I can understand people's, Matt Damon, that's
Matt Damon, okay.
I can understand people's, their frustration, dislike, disregard for the insurance industry, but insurance is there for a reason. And so I say, things is good to have, but people forgot that the person that was shot and killed on New York City streets was a real person. Forget the fact that he was making $10.2 million a year in bonuses and all of that other stuff. Forget the fact that he was the head of a very large corporation. This guy was the father of two teenage sons, or two teenage children. This guy was somebody's, husband. I know he and his wife, they were going through some things. This was somebody's husband. This was somebody's son.
Real person. Yeah.
This was a real person that, because of a disagreement with the policy of a big entity, because you shoot the man, the company's still there.
Yeah. So Greg, is a suspect in custody now?
So that's it. That is you know what? I like how you moved this there, brother. I like how you moved this there. So that is the background to the story of what happened to Michael Thompson, who was the gentleman who was the CEO who was shot and killed. And for days, New York City was trying to track down the killer. And it appeared that they wouldn't be able to find this killer. But New York City, Brother Love, is not only the city that never sleeps, it's the city whose eyes never blink. And I say that because on these New York City streets, and y'all better be careful with this, on these New York City streets, they had cameras everywhere. And they were able to track this suspect from the moment that he shot Brian Thompson all the way back to the point of where he was at a hospital, to the point where he stopped and got coffee at a Starbucks or somewhere else, to the point of where he got off of a bus, and they used the cameras in New York City to track this guy's every step. Now, for some people, it was frustrating because they're just like, oh, they're never going to catch this guy. But what they forgot is that we were less than a week into the investigation. And so today, after all of these clues, the clues with the backpack with the Monopoly money in it, the clues with the casings that were found on the ground, the clues with regards to the videos that were taken and all these other things, they arrested today a person of interest, a suspect in Philadelphia. And this gentleman was sitting in a McDonald's in plain view. And in his backpack, he had multiple fake IDs. In his backpack, my understanding is that he had Monopoly money.
Wow.
In his backpack, my understanding is that he had a manifesto. And in his backpack, he had what has been referred to as a ghost gun. And what a ghost gun is, A ghost gun is a gun that people can manufacture at home that does not have a serial number, so it can't be traced. And these ghost guns, Brother Love, this is the scary part, can actually be created using a 3D printer at home.
Wow. Greg, lay this out because what this person, an Ivy League graduate as well?
Listen, this guy was a graduate of University of Pennsylvania. He was a graduate from the bachelor and the master's program in engineering. This was probably, and listen, apparently he had to be smart. The way that this crime was laid out, and if it weren't for certain faux pas, because I don't think that he understood just how extensive the video cameras were and the surveillance was in New York City.
One of the faux pas, though, that has been articulated and described is that this guy was in the hospital. He had on his hoodie, had on his mask, and if not for the flirtation with one of the nurses there, where the nurse was saying, "Hey,
yeah, let me see your face."
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, so that was one of the faux pas.
Man.
One of the faux pas, and so I think that if this had happened in some other city, I mean, big. Despite what I think about New York person, major respect to law enforcement, major respect to that system that they have in New York City, where they were able to track down and find this suspect that no one ever would have thought how to find this guy, that they found this guy in less than a week.
Greg, do you, I mean, I don't know if it's been reported, but there was a lot of police work that went into this.
Oh, yeah.
Was it, I mean, and I don't know, do you think the federal agencies got involved in this as well? Only thing I saw was originally NYPD was doing the investigation, but I would imagine you would have multiple law enforcement agencies getting involved in this.
Well, listen, at this point you have to, because what you have is a gun that has been manufactured. So you have someone that actually traveled also across state lines to get to New York to, to commit this heinous crime. And so I believe the federal agencies are going to very much get involved. I think that, although I know that New York has jurisdiction, I think that when it comes down to it, just my personal opinion, that this is going to more than likely become a federal case.
Damn.
So I mean, listen, I mean, this is going to be, I mean, not just what happened last week is going to be interesting to watch, but how they move forward and prosecute this young man and find out the motive.
What motivated?
Yeah, I mean, 26 years old, and he uses, what some would arguably call genius. He uses that genius to commit a
heinous
crime
crime,
that has rocked the insurance industry. I mean, listen, the day after this happened, they were saying that there was a policy by one insurance company where they were denying coverage for anesthesiology services. So let's say if you went into the hospital, and this is why insurance companies, why people hate insurance companies. I'm gonna just say that. So let's say if you went to the hospital and you were having a procedure done, and your procedure was supposed to take an hour. And while they are in there, they run into a complication where instead of an hour, the procedure may take 15 minutes longer or 30 minutes longer. The insurance company at that point was going to deny any further payment to the anesthesiologist.
Wait. While you're, come on, man.
Yeah. And so there was the way this came out, there was an anesthesiologist that had a kid, like a child, like a real child, who had cancer. And there's a letter reportedly that's out there, and he wrote this insurance company saying, well, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that if I'm operating on this child with cancer and something happens where it takes me longer to do the procedure so that I don't mess something up, that you're not going to pay this child's bill? And how stupid it was. That's why people, that's why people hate what insurance companies do. They understand it's a necessary evil. They hate what they do. But again, look, even with all of that, even with the policies and procedures of the insurance company, I still do not believe that anyone should go out and target an individual who is at the head of these corporations.
I agree with you. And here's the last thing, man, I'll plug on this. As a result of that, Greg, and what you just said, I mean, because I would have never even thought about an insurance company while a surgery is taking place, that financial decisions are being made while you're under.
Right.
But with that being the case, do you think Congress, do you think there's going to be some more engaged and effective discussions relative to, I mean, because they've been having conversations about insurance companies for decades. That's one. But then two, and don't think that this is far remote, but once that took place, that sad event that took place, man, with that executive, I would believe, Greg, that high alert went through not just that insurance company, but all of those insurance companies about their executives, I would have been on alert if I would have been in a capacity such as it to say, hey, look, I need to heighten the awareness of my security.
I mean, not only that, and you're absolutely right, because what the insurance companies did the day or a day or so after this is they started removing their high-level executives from the websites to where it was easy to find out who those individuals are and different things. Because listen, I mean, I remember one time when I was at the Attorney General's office, somebody called me and they said, hey, listen, all I need are like the last four of your social security number. And I was like, I'm not giving you the last four of my social security number. I was like, well, there's nothing I can do with it. I just needed to identify you. And I was like, I'm not giving you my information. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, you give me your last four. I said, what's your name? I said, you give me your last four. You gave me. I said, all right, give me your phone number. And I hung up. So 15 minutes later, I called back and I said, okay, this is your name. This is where you live. I understand here also that you're delinquent on your student loans. I see here that you have a misdemeanor, such. So people don't understand that with just the name, you can find out so much about an individual. I mean, if I had, somebody's name, I can tell you right now, I can find out what they say. I can tell you preliminarily about certain things that they own and different things of that nature that people don't understand and realize. And so these companies quickly realize, well, wait a minute, this guy, Brian Thompson, this guy probably found him on the website and targeted him because of finding him on this website.
Wow, man. Sad commentary.
So,
Greg, let me say this to you. Here's a case that we're going to talk about that I think everybody has totally, completely forgot about because I don't know how long ago it took place. Daniel Penny.
A lot of folks probably have forgotten the story, but they're going to remember it as we talk about this. Back in 2023, and Let's Talk Nation, we know that you all are wise. You all probably know all of this stuff, but this is just a reminder to you all. But back in 2023, May of 2023, there was a man on a subway in New York City. Here we are back again in New York City. But there was a man on the subway in New York City. The young man was 30 years old. He was homeless. He had some mental disorders and different things of that nature. And much like people in New York City on subways with mental disorders, he was on the train threatening people, saying that he was going to hurt them or either hurt himself. And while he was doing that, there was another gentleman on the train who was a former Marine. And so he became concerned that this man was going to actually do harm to other people or himself on the train. So being who he was, he took it upon himself to subdue the man, restrain and subdue the man. And what he did was he put a rear chokehold on him to restrain him while he was on the train to keep him from hurting other people. Now, the chokehold that he had this gentleman in was a chokehold that lasted for 6 minutes. And when he finally let go of the chokehold, the gentleman eventually passed away. And so they said it was as a result directly of the chokehold. But the coroner indicated that there were some other things that were in his system, drugs and some other things. But the precipitating cause of death was the chokehold. The question then became, Brother Love, this former Marine who was on the subway, who felt that his life and others' lives on the train was being threatened, subdued a gentleman who passed away. He was then arrested and charged with the murder of this homeless man who was on the train. Now, here's what I neglected to tell everyone. The gentleman who was on the train that was threatening everyone was African American. The gentleman who subdued the gentleman on the train who was threatening everyone was or is Caucasian or white. And so that automatically, especially in 2023, put this nation at odds with each other. Because, the first thing that we come to is not, did this guy do this because he felt that the lives of the individuals on the train in his life were threatened, but he did this because he was black.
So, Greg, the question that everybody is probably asking, where was the police when all of this was taking place?
Outstanding question. That is the question of the year. New York has notoriously been known to limit the budget of its police officers. A number of police officers have resigned in the city of New York because of the budget cuts, the restrictions. But not only that, Brother Love, how they are not backed up by their superiors. I mean, there was one instance that I believe we saw where there were 5 miscreants who attacked the police officer on the streets of New York. And nothing was done to them. As a matter of fact, I think they were arrested and then they were let loose within a day or so.
What you're specifically talking about was the case of undocumented immigrants that assaulted.
Right. So a lot of police officers, number one, either they aren't going to go into certain areas or they're not going to help under certain circumstances, situations for fear that even if they do help, they may find themselves persecuted or prosecuted. And so this Marine, who thought that he was doing something to protect others' lives, unfortunately, caused the death of this young man. Now, the big question, as you said, Brother Love, is where were the police? That's the big question. So let's fast forward to this past week, or the past couple of weeks. The trial of Daniel Penny, who was the former Marine, took place in New York City, where they wanted to determine if he was criminally responsible for the death of Jordan Neely, who was the young man who unfortunately died in this particular case. Now, across the board, but let me just say this across the board. I just like even with the George Zimmerman case, I don't think anyone should have died in that case. But unfortunately they did. But let's deal with what from a legal perspective, if what was done in that courtroom, or what was done on that subway, if it was criminally negligent or if it was criminal. And so after a week or so of hearing testimony, a lot from experts, none from Daniel Penny, on Friday the jury came back, and what they did was they determined that Daniel Penny, that they were deadlocked on the question of whether or not Daniel Penny was guilty of second-degree manslaughter. So that was the big charge.
So where does it go from there?
So when they're deadlocked, one of two things can happen. Either the prosecution or the prosecutor, the DA, in the case of New York, can drop the case, or they can determine that they want to bring it back because there was no determination. All right. So after that, the jury had to determine the lesser charge, which the lesser charge was criminal negligent homicide. And so today, the jury came back with the verdict of not guilty, and they acquitted Daniel Penny on that charge. Now, right now, there are a lot of folks in the United States who are extremely upset about the verdict from the jury.
Rick, one of the things, man, that I saw, and please elaborate on it, but I saw where Black Lives Matter is talking about staging a protest. Man, I mean, this is from me. This is not reflective of anybody else but me, but man, I am so tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter when it doesn't matter with all of the other circumstances and situations that are taking place in community. And on top of that, when we saw all this money going into Black Lives Matter and none of that money ever reaching the communities. So when you talk about Black Lives Matter going out protesting, Greg, I could do without it.
So here's the other thing too, though, brother, and that's an outstanding point. Did Black Lives Matter when Jordan Neely was homeless on the street? Did Black Lives Matter when his family abandoned him and left him to live on the streets of New York, and now they are? And listen, I understand. I'm not saying that his family should not be upset. What I am going to say is that his family, in my estimation, if there was something going on with this young man, they should not have allowed him to deteriorate to the point to where he was a miscreant living on the street. That I don't understand. And especially, if this was, because his dad came forward. If his son was on the streets and he knew that his son was suffering that way, where were you to save your son from being on the streets when he was in that condition? That's the part that I struggle to understand.
Rick, here's something else that, and I understand that we're talking about a citizen acting, but Greg, I see a lot of stores that have policies that their employees, and of course because of liability purposes, but man, I've been to stores and I've seen folk that go in the stores, man, and possibly, well, I saw one situation where one individual assaulted another and store employees were standing there and can't do anything.
Yeah.
So, but that's because of store policies, liability, and what else, Greg?
Listen, you said it all, but listen, let me tell you this. And people don't like lawyers. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I mean, I have a client who was jumping out of an airplane. The company that she used did not have the proper documentation, did not have the proper waivers. It was bad weather that day. The tandem jump instructor that she had, come to find out, he had concerns about the weather. He actually asked, the ground if they should be jumping, and they told them to go ahead and jump. Obviously, proper's over people, and I'll deal with that when I get to trial on that case. And so in that particular case, this young lady was encouraged and told that it was okay to jump out of a plane when clearly there were issues and concerns that she was not made aware of. When she jumped out of the plane, the wind swept them away. The parachute, there were wind gusts that were over the allowable amount. The parachute slammed to the ground. She has traumatic brain injury, but she's doing fine now.
Okay.
She's recovered. She had a fractured pelvis, broken legs, all of this other stuff. And so one of the things I reached out to someone in the skydiving industry, and if anyone knows anyone in the skydiving industry, I want to say y'all that you ought to be ashamed and embarrassed of a person like this. And I just reached out and I said, hey, listen, I have a case in Florida where the jump instructor jumped during bad weather. He was injured. The young lady I represent was injured. I just want to know if anything should have been done different. That's all I said. Mm-hmm. In response, this person who is a professional or purportedly a professional, sounds more like a clown to me, basically sent me an email back and said, get lost ambulance chase. XOXO, the entire jump community. I don't think he's speaking for the whole jump community. So I just basically sent back a message and I said, thank you for your prompt response. I hope that no one in your family is ever injured due to the negligence of someone else and you need my assistance. Because people, for some reason, don't like lawyers. And
don't like them till they need them.
Don't like them till they need them. All right? And so I say all that to say, we go back to this case we're talking about here with Mr. Neely. The question is, even when you have someone in a store, all right, and the store's policy is if someone is being assaulted or attacked, you stand by and you do nothing. If that happens and that person or that person's family comes to me, I don't care what the store's policy is. They are criminally negligent for not providing a safe condition or a safe premises for their what they call business invitees.
So Greg, let me ask you this, and this is something that I haven't heard anybody articulate. How well are regular Joe citizens protected when you see something like that taking place? How well are you protected by the Good Samaritan Act?
It depends on where you are. Let's say that. It depends on where you are. I mean, here in the state of Florida, we have the stand your ground law. Some other areas, they have something similar to stand your ground. And so to an extent, as long as you are acting to protect someone who is in imminent harm, or you are in imminent harm of bodily injury or deadly force, then you can act as a good Samaritan to help someone out. And in most cases, and I think that even in this case, I think that the jury got it right. It's sad what happened. It is unfortunate what happened to Jordan Neely. And listen, I don't know the young man, but I would say that I wish that he were here today. And in him being here today, I wish that his family was there with him, supporting him if he were here today. Unfortunately, that was not the circumstance in the case. He was left to live on the street, and his family abandoned him. And he was on a train. Basically, a part of what he said also is that he didn't care if he lived or if he died. For a 30-year-old child to get to that point is sad and all in and of itself. And that's why I say Black Lives Matter should matter under all circumstances and situations.
I agree.
And if a member of Black Lives Matter was on the train and they saw that gentleman like that, they should have been calling someone else from Black Lives Matter and say, hey, do we have some money in a trust fund or in some type of fund where we can set it aside for individuals like this to help them get help?
Rick, we're talking about some cases here that probably have fallen off of people's radar.
Yeah.
This other case that Trey Sampson. Is it Terry?
Tyree. I want to talk about Black Lives Matter, so I can't slam them a little bit more.
I don't want to give him that much press.
Listen, it's enough going on in this country. We're divided enough in this country.
You're right.
It's enough going on to where, and the next step is coming. The next step is coming, and if he would have been found guilty, it would have come much, much sooner. And I'm sure that it's still being contemplated. But he doesn't have any assets, so it doesn't matter. Aside from the money that was raised for him by Matt Gaetz in the state of Florida, the defense firm, they helped him to raise $3 million to get, the proper representation or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, Jordan Neely did not have any representation when he was here, and he deserved that representation when he was here for people that cared and loved him. And he was placed in this unfortunate condition because of his illness, and because he was abandoned by his family. And I don't want people to think that I'm beating up on the family too much because his family loves him, I'm sure. but there was a time when they could have shown it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time they could have shown it.
Since you say you're not done with beating up on Black Lives Matter yet, do they still have active chapters?
I haven't seen it.
I mean, you know,
I haven't seen
great, but I think that they've demonstrated that was a ruse.
You're saying it nice. You're saying it nice. Like I said, if Black Lives Matter, it should matter under all circumstances and situations.
Well, and I'm gonna cap it off by just saying it simply. That Black Lives Matter didn't impact the black community in terms of improving their lives.
No.
I think that was a special interest.
Yeah, and so much so to the tune of people in the higher rankings of Black Lives Matter were taking money and buying multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah.
Not multi-million-dollar facilities in communities to help the community, but multi-million-dollar homes for themselves. And so, I mean, you know, listen, I understand that if you run an organization that there are certain costs and things that you should, but when you take the bulk of the money from an organization for your own benefit,
You're right.
and you still sit around and you see that the community that you have been created to serve are no better than when you first came into existence, you shouldn't want to take any money.
Hey, and you know, you and I, we stay up to speed on things, but Greg, I've not heard to date about one single dime that's going into the black community from an educational perspective, from building relationships, from financial literacy, nothing, zero, zilch.
Yeah. So I mean, but listen. So like I said, I mean, again, I can't say this enough. This is a sad situation. You know, and I know that people are going to find it odd for me to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's a sad situation for Daniel Penny. It's ultimately and equally a sad situation for Jordan Neely's family. You know, despite what my initial thoughts are about how I feel that they abandoned him, and now it's about money.
Mm-hmm.
It should never be about, you know, money. So that's what I'm saying. So, you know, the next step, and we know it's coming or would have been coming much sooner, is that they were going to file a civil lawsuit against Daniel Penny for the death of Jordan Neely, because they're going to say, you know, you're found criminally negligent, so now you're civilly at fault for causing the death of Jordan Neely. Now, I think, you know, if you really truly look at it, you know, I don't know what the comparative fault laws are in New York, but I think that, you know, a jury probably would have found and could have found that Jordan Neely contributed to those actions as well, as unfortunate as it is. And here's the thing, though, because people don't understand how laws are, everything seems to be unfair.
Mm-hmm.
But when you properly apply the law, more times than not, the proper outcome comes about.
Well, Greg, I think this is a perfect segue. This is the sad case, man. We're talking about a 14-year-old
Listen, man, this is a holiday season. Why don't we talk about that?
Hey,
So
we
next week gonna be happy. You know, happy. You know, the happy time. What is that?
It depends on what's taking place in the world.
But
But Greg, when we talk about jury verdicts, here's a jury award, $310 million.
$10 million.
And Greg, to my knowledge, and I mean, I know you keep up with this, but there were other parties that had settled a year or so ago.
Right.
And this company decided that it did not want to settle. And I don't know what the settlement boundaries were, how much it was, but this award, man, I think surprised a lot of people.
It surprised me until I took a closer look at it.
Okay.
I'll say that. But I will say this. I think.
And tell people what I mean. We talked about the 14-year-old man and the sad situation.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know is this was a young man that was in the Orlando community visiting one of the things.
From Missouri. Yeah, he's from Missouri.
Yeah.
14 years old. Here for spring break. You know, and listen, we as parents, you know, we're reluctant to let our kids leave our home and leave the comfort of our home and go different places. And his parents, you know, he was a football player. Big kid, you know, big strapping kid, was probably had a bright future ahead of him. Unfortunately, we will never know. But at age 14, I want to say, Brother Love, if I remember, I want to say, at age 14, they had him at 6'3" or either 6'4", 383 pounds. There were probably colleges already salivating over this kid, thinking, hey, if he is 6'4", 383 pounds now at 14, this is going to be a monster for us, and we're going to watch this kid. He probably had some offers and different things like that. So, you know, young man, you know, 14 years old, here away from his family, enjoying his time in the city beautiful in Orlando. He goes down to Icon Park, and there's a ride in Icon Park called the Sling, I think it is. And he goes and he wants to get on this ride. Now remember, 6'5", 383 pounds.
What was the capacity of the ride?
Great question. And guess who should have known that? The individuals who are operating the ride.
Mm.
And so at 6'3", 6'4", 383 pounds, they allowed this kid, you know, and an adult should have intervened. And I'm not saying the adults that were with them, I'm saying the adults that were at the park. An adult should have intervened because there were kids who were basically letting, you know, kids on and off the ride, just like a summer job.
Okay,
or a little
yeah,
job. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh yeah. They let this kid get onto a ride where he weighed over 100 pounds over the capacity, or nearly 100 pounds over the capacity. The capacity of this particular ride was 285 pounds. And apparently this kid was so big that he was not fully secured in this ride. But they figured, hey, you know, nothing's going to happen. You know, the thing did shut down or close down, so he should be secured. The ride commenced, and unfortunately, as the ride commenced, this kid plunged to his death, approximately 100 feet to the ground to his death. Now, I will say this. If I were the parent of this young man, I would be livid.
Yeah.
And these parents were just that. They were livid. They wanted answers. They demanded that that ride be taken down. And for some reason, that ride stayed up for several weeks, if not months, before they finally agreed that, hey, listen, we need to take this ride down. Despite the fact that the state of Florida says that it's safe, we need to take this ride down. And so they did take the ride down. You're absolutely right. There were I want to say that there were 3 entities that were sued in the case, one of which I want to say was Icon Park, because as the operator of the premises possessor or operator or who manages
On the property, right? Yeah. Okay.
They have a duty and an obligation to maintain the premises in a reasonably safe fashion. And so they obviously would have been named in, or they would have been placed on notice that they were going to be sued. And my understanding is that they settled. They did the right thing. The other entity that was named, that was put on notice, was the operator of the actual ride, the persons who owned the ride, who had placed it in that area. They realized that what they did was wrong. They settled out. They did the right thing. Now, when I heard about the third entity that was sued, I kind of took a moment of pause. I'm gonna tell you right now. I kind of took a moment of pause, because the third entity that was sued was actually the company that manufactured the ride.
Okay.
All right. Now, imagine this, Brother Love. All right. You make cars. All right, and you make cars to drive 15 miles per hour. That's your car. They drive 15 miles per hour. And so you make that car and then you sell it to a dealership. Okay. That dealership then takes that car and they sell it to a rental car company. Okay. And the rental car company then takes the car and they say, okay, we know that this car can only do 15 miles per hour, but we're going to put gas in the car that allows it to go 70 miles per hour. All right. Someone gets in the car, they put the gas in, they go 70 miles per hour, and they crash to a wall. All right. I see where the operator of the rental car company is responsible, because they're the ones that put the gas in the car to make it go faster than what it's supposed to go, and they put it into someone's possession so they can do it. I don't see how you're responsible, because all you did was make the car.
Make the car.
What happened after it left the stream of commerce from you to them, you didn't control that.
So Greg, what had me real curious, because you said you read the judgment.
I read the judgment.
And that's, see, our audience who's watching this, that's what I'm fixated on. Greg, what's in the judgment? Because you're not telling us something.
So here's what was key to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was talking to my wife about the story, I said, I don't think they're going to find the company responsible. I just don't. I don't see how they can find the company responsible, because I didn't see that nexus. I didn't understand the nexus of that. Because I've done products cases in the past also. I just didn't see the nexus. And so when I heard the $300 million verdict, I was like, wow. The first thing that stuck out to me was I knew automatically that there was a punitive component.
Okay.
What that means is that the jury looked at it and said that this was the case where there was profits over people. Now, where did we hear that before? Well, we're going to hear that again with these insurance cases where they put profits over people, and that's why they get punitive damage. All right. So that immediately stood out to me. The next thing that stood out to me was the fact of how long it took the case. Case was only 2 days. 2 days.
That's it?
for a jury to come back with a $300 million verdict. So I was like, well, let me just read up and let me just take a look. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and let me pull up, the verdict from this case. What I realized, what I noticed, Brother Love, is that as I was reading through it, I looked at the joint stipulation for the trial, and what I noticed is that there was no defendant or defense attorney
So,
listed in that area.
so what does that mean?
So as I continued to read, what I found out is that at trial, the company did not have a representative there, and they didn't have an attorney there. So all the jury heard was from the plaintiff's side.
Okay.
They never heard from the defense side. So why is it that they never heard from the defense side?
Mhm.
The company that manufactured this ride is in Austria. I surmise that Florida courts
Has no jurisdiction.
do not have any jurisdiction over this company.
So that could just be a paper verdict,
That is
a
exactly.
paper award, rather.
It's a paper verdict. Now, it's a $300 million verdict nonetheless. And kudos to the attorneys because listen, I mean, just because it looks like a slam dunk don't mean it's a slam dunk.
See, a lot of people don't know what you do. I mean,
Yeah.
when we hear that, you're immediately thinking, okay, there's going to be a transaction.
Yeah. No, a lot of times, I mean, not a lot of times, sometimes in the practice of law, as attorneys, we will get verdicts for the purposes of putting other people on notice of, hey, listen, I got a $300 million verdict. Listen, I would love to be able to say.
So, Greg, is that
I gotta
unusual?
think.
Is that unusual for? I would imagine this is a major company based on that ride, but is it unusual for companies not to send any representation?
Listen, if they feel like you have no jurisdiction over me, why would they send
Oh
somebody?
yeah.
Why would
Okay.
they send somebody over there? Listen, you can't touch me. Now, but here's the other thing too. The company that was sued, I can probably almost guarantee you that it is not a $300 million company. I could probably guarantee to you that it's probably not even a $10 to $15 million company. Probably a small company that makes rides. They probably do pretty well, but it's not a company that has revenues that would approach that type of verdict to where you would think they have that type of verdict. But if you don't show up and you don't put forward a defense, I mean, listen, you can ask for the world. I'm
Well-
not surprised they didn't give them $500 million.
Well, Greg, what a lot of people would also be thinking is these companies, they are insured. So would insurance step in? And I don't know the boundaries of the legal world, but would insurance step in to try to mitigate a smaller settlement?
Yeah, an insurance company can, but again, in this case, apparently the insurance company felt like they have no jurisdiction. We're not coming over there to defend a case where you can't touch us anyway.
Man,
You get your verdict, and you just have your favorite, file whatever
you know
need to file.
something. Let me back up just a little bit because I be listening to you carefully. Greg, Icon Park.
Yeah.
The owners or the managers or the property management of Icon Park, Florida-based company.
Right.
The other entity that also settled, that operated the ride.
So I don't know if so listen, they may not be a Florida-based company, but they're doing business in the state of Florida where they have to be registered to do business in the state of Florida. So there may be a company that's outside of the state of Florida, but as long as they are licensed and registered to do business here, you can go after them.
Okay, so that answers that question.
Yeah.
Greg, we got 10 minutes left, and we're gonna hit on this one item, man, that has made the news and has everybody really sitting back saying, "Wonder what's gonna happen with this?" And I'm talking about none other than the news about Jay-Z.
Oh man, you cut me deep.
Yeah.
You cut me deep, man. You know I'm a Jay-Z fan. I'm a Jay-Z
Yeah,
fan.
but
man.
what's
Listen. I've been listening to Jay-Z, and I'm talking about literally since the whole Hawaiian Sophie day. I remember the video Hawaiian Sophie with Jay-Z in it.
See, I don't even remember that.
Listen, I'm telling you, man, with him and Jaz-O. Now, I've been watching Jay-Z, and when Jay-Z owned the summer with his albums, starting in '97, and every summer you knew that Jay-Z was going to drop an album. I was there waiting for Jay-Z to drop his album. Listen, if I go somewhere now and they start playing a Jay-Z song, I might be word for word with the lyrics on that.
Something I took notice to when this came out was how aggressive his attorney was in his response to this suit being filed. And one of the things that he said to the entity filing the suit says, look, we're not going to stand for this. But furthermore, if you believe that this took place, don't come at us civilly. File a criminal case. Wait, what kind of stance is that?
Listen, so for those who may not have heard the story, several weeks ago, we talked about Sean P. Diddy Combs and the trouble that he was in. He was actually arrested. He's been detained for several months now on allegations of sex trafficking and abuse and other things. And so the rumbling in Hollywood and New York and other huge cities with celebrities is that there are names of other celebrities on lists, and there are a number of celebrities who have been very quiet. There are some celebrities, that have purportedly left the country because their name may be on the list of Sean P. Diddy Combs' associates during this time period that he was having these freak offs and other things. And one of the names that continued to come up as, hey, listen, man, this is supposed to be your guy, this is supposed to be your man, and you're quiet, was Jay-Z. And people are like, well, why is Jay-Z so quiet? Why is he not defending Sean Puff Daddy Combs? I mean, they both came up in the same era. They both came up in the same industry. They're both, wildly successful in the music industry. They should be backing each other up. But Jay-Z was very, very solid.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there has been some things said that Jay-Z and Beyonce have, not necessarily fled the U.S., but they're vacationing. You know what I'm saying? They got money. They can go and they can, their kids don't have to stay in school like our kids had to. They can go and they can do it up. They got like private too. But you haven't really seen Jay-Z and Beyonce recently. I mean, especially now. Think about basketball season. Jay-Z's normally courtside. Football season. Jay-Z is normally in the booth and all of this other stuff, but we really haven't seen a lot of Jay-Z. So apparently the reason why we haven't seen a lot of Jay-Z is because he wanted to stay quiet because he was afraid that either his name would be on this list or he would be implicated in some of the things dealing with Sean P. Diddy Combs. And so on yesterday, the shoe finally dropped, and there was a civil lawsuit that was filed against Sean Puff Daddy Combs, just solely. And that lawsuit was amended to where it now adds the name of Sean Jay-Z Carter, related to the rape of a 13-year-old girl in the year 2000. Now, listen, I fully understand Jay-Z's attorney saying, hey, listen, if you believe in this so much, go against us criminally. What I would caution, unless and until you know everything that's going on, that you don't ask for certain things unless and until you know that you're not going to get what you asked for.
One of the things that stuck out to me, Greg, and I want you to have time because I want you to articulate, but one of the things when I saw the prosecutor, and this was several weeks back, when he stood up there and he said, hey, look, there's some individuals that we're going to be coming after because you participated in these events. But then he also said something that really caught my attention. He said, and we're also going to be coming after those individuals that was at these parties, saw what they saw, and didn't report it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you stood by and said nothing, that makes you an accomplice. If you watch someone being abused, or if you watch, because basically what it is, it's a crime. And if you stood by and you watched the crime take place, then you could also be, liable or found guilty of conspiracy, which is, quite frankly, a criminal issue. Now, here's the thing: what Jay-Z's attorney should fully be aware of is that individuals cannot bring criminal claims. So the fact that he jumps out there and says that, hey, listen, if you take this so seriously, why don't you bring it against us criminally? An individual is not the person that brings a criminal charge. The government is the only one that can bring a criminal charge. And so, listen, I don't know if the person who has filed this civil suit is maybe tipping their hand as to what the government may be preparing to do, but that's why I say, before you jump out there and demand something without knowing fully what's going to happen, you may just want to sit back and wait. And so, his attorney, and I hope, listen, I hope that none of this is true, because like I said, I'm a Jay-Z fan. His attorney may have triggered an investigation into Jay-Z.
Wow. Well, man, definitely something that's going to be interesting. And Greg, we're just sitting back, man, watching the development of this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these are interesting times we live in. But yeah, I'm sorry, man.
I know it has to create some sleepless nights for individuals, because I know you saw the video of when P. Diddy was just cavalierly walking around the hotel with like 10 of his entourage, and then you saw, was it the feds or somebody? They arrested him in the hotel, and those 10 guys that was rolling with him, you saw how they dispersed.
Yeah. I mean, listen. It's easy to be someone's friend when all is good.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. The true friendship is tested when somebody's going through something.
Your boy.
And I'm going to say this because there's a person that I don't want to speak to. I'm going to say me that I'm a true friend to, and I understand that there may have been some things that were taking place, but he is battling with the powers that be right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as a friend, what I'll say is that I'm with this gentleman, no matter what, because I personally at this point, think that he is being unfairly targeted. When you have one governmental official say that a person did not comply with a request for information and make statements to that effect, or when in fact the email system was defective and you didn't receive the email because of your system. I think that shows me, and the other thing too is that when you typically would actually go and pick up the documents that were requested and not ask for those things to be sent via email, it just brings to question what the motive is. And so because of that, whether or not my friend is wrong or right, that is still my friend, and I stand by my friends, and we have our conversations in private, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Me and my friends, we have our conversations in private, and y'all don't need to know what we say to our friends.
And Greg, great point, man. And I'm gonna finish with what we started with earlier, and we talked about this off air, and that is, man, it is great, and I appreciate you. I appreciate Doc Polite to have people that have your interests at heart, to be able to bounce things off, and you've told me plenty of times, Brother Love, no. I mean, you and Doc, I mean, y'all, I can appreciate that, man, and you guys have stopped me many a time from doing a knee jerk, and I'll say it and end it with that though. Man, it's good to have people on your team that has your interests at heart, that will tell you some of the things that you might not want to hear, but they're true.
Yeah, no doubt. But listen, I'm gonna leave with this, and this is a quote. Goethe said this, and Goethe was the author of Faust, an 18th century author. But I'm ashamed to say that I heard it in the movie Almost Famous.
Almost Famous.
I heard it in the movie, but I love to say it because these are words of encouragement. And I want all of my people out there to understand this and to believe this with all your heart. Be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid.
Hey, hey, Mondo, great cue. I'm gonna say amen, and I'm gonna just leave you with this, brother. You don't have to go home,
But you got to get out of here.
Hey, until next week, we're going to impart some more wisdom on you, make your IQ go up. But Greg, hey, man, those some strong words. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, we'll see you next week on Let's Talk Nation.